What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another Heart Over Height episode. Today, we're going to be going through and talking about all the NBA offseason moves thus far, free agency deals, extensions, trades for all 30 teams. So, if you do enjoy this content, do me a huge favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and comment down below on your favorite move thus far in free agency. We got a lot of bangers in here, a lot of movement across the league. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So all this is brought to us just by the NBA.com. That's what I like, them, Bleacher Report, for, all my information and such. So let's start off. Let's talk about the Atlanta Hawks. They obviously they made the big DeJounte Murray trade, brought in Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance, and a couple picks in there as well. They lost A.J. Griffin as well. Now, it was a little bit confusing because we don't really know the direction of what Atlanta is looking to do in the future. As far as bringing in someone like Larry Nance, obviously that was for contract to compare with DeJounte Murray. But you look at, they went young, Dyson Daniels, getting him. Solid move, I'd say, for both parties. Hopefully those first-round picks turn into something for them. Next up, we got the Boston Celtics, who just pretty much reassigned everybody, which is exactly what they needed to do. They won a championship. Might as well run it back, bring everybody back. So next up, we have an interesting team that made the big trade this offseason, which was Mikal Bridges going to the Knicks in exchange for Bogdanovic. Then they got, picks in return and such. Pretty solid offseason for them, I would say, because they got a massive haul for Mikal Bridges. Then they signed Shake Milton and got, just role players there. So next up, Charlotte brings in Josh Green via trade with the Mavs. Now, I haven't actually looked at this trade. I just want to see what was given back. We'll send 2 second-round picks. So, Josh Green, I have always seen him as someone who can kind of take off if he's on another roster. He kind of gets put on the back burner a little bit, just being, with Luka and Kyrie. So I feel like him and Charlotte is kind of a match made in heaven. He'll play well with LaMelo, with Brandon Miller. They got something going on over there, and he's young, kind of fits that timeline that they're looking for. They also get Reggie Jackson, who's a vet. Solid offseason so far for them. Obviously they're, got a lot of issues going on with locker room and everything. They have a new coach in there. Hopefully he's got it locked down. I was watching a video the other day on him. It seems like he's taking it very serious and will be a solid guy for them. Now, we get to one of the more lower end of off-season movement. I didn't really like, so far I haven't liked Chicago's movement. Losing out on Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey, who is a solid player but doesn't really add a whole lot to your roster. They bring in Jalen Smith. They re-signed Patrick Williams to a huge deal, which I didn't love. I think that he's not as valuable as what that contract showcases. And then they lose out on Andre Drummond as well to the 76ers, which was going to happen. We knew that. So I think the Patrick Williams contract is just going to bite them in the butt in the future. He's just overpaid. But who knows? Maybe he can prove us wrong now that DeMar's going to be gone. Zach LaVine will probably be gone. Alex Caruso's now out of the way. He'll have a playmaker with him in Josh Giddey, so maybe that'll give him the green light. Go ahead. The Cavs haven't done anything besides just re-signing Donovan Mitchell to a 3-year extension. You brought back your guy. I think that there are going to be a few teams that we talk about here that definitely are losing out on free agency and have lower grades because they haven't done anything. Other teams have decided to get better, and they just aren't doing that. The Cleveland is in that category of, like, you lost to Boston, right? And then you need to go out and you need to go get guys that can beat Boston. Or in the future, you have to face the Knicks that got better. You have to face the 76ers that got better. And there's a few teams in the East that just decided or haven't done anything yet. And Cleveland is one of those teams that just they could be looking to shake things up. Darius Garland has been a big question mark for them as to whether or not they'll look to trade him because of his fit with Donovan Mitchell on the court together. They both play better when the other one is not on the court, but who knows? Dallas. Obviously, the big thing with Dallas is they got Klay Thompson. You get Q Grimes, too, which I think that's a solid player. And Najee Marshall, not a bad player either. Your huge problem here is, I think, Derrick Jones Jr. I mean, what he did for you guys in the playoffs was just bring together a lot of intensity on the court. And a guy, like a glue guy that you look for. And they got rid of Josh Green, who also played very well in the finals. I mean, in that last game, he hit like 5 threes. I understand losing out on Tim Hardaway Jr. That's totally fine. He didn't really add too much to your roster, but losing out on Derrick Jones Jr., it seems like that might bite them in the butt in the future, especially when I just don't see their roster now as a championship contending roster, as in like if they go up against Boston again, let's say next year, or whoever comes out of the East, Boston, Philly, New York, Milwaukee's always going to be scary. Are they going to be able to have the versatile defenders that you need in order to win a championship? It seems at this moment like that's a no, because they brought in Klay Thompson, who, let's be honest, is not the Klay Thompson that was winning championships with Golden State. He's definitely an older guy that's just going to be there to, shoot the sniper. So not the greatest offseason so far for them, but we'll see. Of course, this could be revenge Klay. Could go back, and maybe that's just what he needed, was a fresh new team. Here, this is going to be another team that hasn't done much, Denver. Hasn't done much in free agency or movement-wise, and all other teams around him are starting to get better. Denver obviously has a really good roster already, so you could make the argument that they didn't need to, but losing out on Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who is a glue guy that I was just discussing about with Derrick Jones Jr., and then losing out on Reggie Jackson as well, guys that were solid role players for you, you haven't replaced them at all. So it's the same thing when they lost out on Bruce Bowen, and he went to the Pacers and got his bag. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope did the same thing, and that's where you're looking at the issue of, hey, these other rosters are getting better around us. We need to do something, and we haven't done anything. You're actually losing your team instead of gaining more players. Right here with Detroit, I like the extension with Cade Cunningham. I think that was an obvious move that you had to make. They are kind of confusing me, though, with bringing in like Tobias Harris, for example. I understand that when he played for you before, he got shot creation and everything. I just saw, and same thing with Tim Hardaway Jr., I saw them as more of a team that needed to stay young and develop more. And maybe bringing in Tobias Harris just brings in a veteran leadership that you needed, that you lost because Bogdanovich is gone and Alec Burks is gone and such. But it's just kind of confusing as the direction that this team is going to. One thing that I will touch on is I love the fact that James Wiseman went to the Pacers. Same thing with like Jalen Smith, went from Phoenix, who wasn't working out in Phoenix, over to Indiana, played a whole lot better, and now is a solid role player in the NBA. I hope something similar happens to Wiseman as he's still growing and, becoming a more, I just, being the second overall pick in a weird draft class, you hope that the guy gets a little better. Another team here, Golden State, that is taking probably the biggest loss in free agency or offseason movement is, Golden State losing out on Klay. They waived Chris Paul, which I expected because obviously he was worth a lot of money and wasn't doing anything for y'all. Now, they did bring in Buddy Hield, which is a huge question mark for the season, but I just see, I don't think he is going to bring, especially, there's a huge hole there defensively with the Warriors that, Curry is not the greatest defender. Buddy Hield is not a good defender either. You have Draymond, who's obviously a good defender, but, Kyle Anderson doesn't seem to fit y'all's offense at all. Buddy Hield fits perfectly, which I that is a plus for them. But there's just the teams around them are getting better, and they're not, and you're wasting the years left of Curry. You need to go out and make a big splash move here and go get somebody that's going to help them win now because you have Curry on your roster. So pretty much I'm not liking what Golden State's doing at all. You need to go use Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody and just go get a guy like Lauri Markkanen with Utah. You go get one of those guys on the trade block. Lauri Markkanen kind of fits perfectly with what Golden State has going on, but he fits a lot of teams because he's kind of just a Swiss Army knife. Houston, I liked the trade for A.J. Griffin. I thought that was pretty solid. Bringing back Aaron Holiday. I mean, Houston is in an interesting point because they're kind of trying to save up a bunch of capital to go get Kevin Durant, which I don't see that happening. But they could also be gearing up a bunch of capital to then go get a guy like Jimmy Butler. Seems like they're trying to make the moves to win now. I think it was smart for them to hold off on the extension of Jalen Green. Now, I would have extended Sengun, but they decided not to. Hold off and try and make a move there. You could make the argument, but Jalen Green, I think he'll be a valuable trade piece for them come the trade deadline, or hopefully soon. I obviously rather see a deal happen sooner rather than later. Indiana made a lot of smart moves here. Adding in James Wiseman, I think, is just a smart move. He's second overall pick for a reason. I think you take a risk on him, and he kind of fits your timeline there. You bring back Obi Toppin, and you had to bring back Pascal. I mean, he fits very well in this roster. I'm glad that they're able to keep him there. So I would say it's a pretty good offseason so far for Indiana. The Clippers are so confusing, right? Because you bring out this tweet with Paul George leaving saying we don't want to hit second apron, blah, blah, blah. You bring in Nicholas Batum, which he's played there before. Bring in Mo Bamba. You sign James Harden to a massive deal on 2 years. And it's just like, I don't really understand the direction of the Clippers. Bringing in guys like Kevin Porter Jr., which I'm like, I don't know about this one, guys. Like, he might not deserve to be playing in the NBA anymore. And if you guys haven't seen what he did, feel free to Google that. I'm not going to be touching on that. All right, let's move on to the Lakers, though. The Lakers are in the similar category of someone like the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Warriors, where the rosters around them are getting better, but they're not doing anything. Yes, you bring back LeBron. I love the draft pick of Dalton Knecht. I thought that was very solid. Max Christie returning is like kind of a whatever kind of thing because he hasn't really showcased a ton for me. Now they lost out on Taurean Prince. He went to the Bucks. And overall for the Lakers, you're just talking about big swing hits for them. DeMar DeRozan. They talked about James Harden. They talked about Jonas Valanciunas. Stuff like that to where LeBron would take a pay cut for that. But clearly that's not happening. Nothing has happened so far for them. They're kind of losing out on a lot over there in LA. Now, Memphis, you can't really give them a grade. They haven't really done much. They haven't done anything, to be honest. Now, this Grizzlies team, I think that they're just looking to run it back because, obviously, the injury of Ja, Desmond Bane missed a lot of time. You kind of just looking. They're going to be a team, though, to keep an eye on for sure. I could see them being in the mix for somebody in the future, especially looking for a center to pair alongside Jaren Jackson Jr. So, moving on to Miami. They are a very confusing roster as well right now because of all the debacle with Jimmy Butler. We're not sure on his timeline whether he will be returning or being traded off somewhere else. So they are in that same category. Nothing's happening. You bring in Alec Burks, like he's not going to sort of push the needle kind of thing. You need to kind of do something here, whether you decide you're going to go win now or kind of take a step back, retool a little bit, and then go win in the future. But now Milwaukee is kind of scaring me as an organization because they're a team that needs to start looking at the clock of age and understand that Brook Lopez is not getting any younger. Chris Middleton is not, they're not looking great. This roster is looking really old, and they don't have a lot of capital in drafting. They are, I talked about it in my draft video. They drafted a project guy rather than one of the older guys to kind of help them win now because you're on the Giannis clock. You gave up Drew Holiday for pretty much, obviously you went and you got Dame, but he's not getting any younger. Defensively, they're struggling, and they're not really doing a whole lot. They're bringing in a guy like Taurean Prince, which, like, he's cool. DeLon Wright, which, like, he's cool, like, decent role players, but, like, is that going to really thread the needle or push the needle for you to a championship when you see Boston has so many wings? You see New York got so much better. Philly got so much better. All these teams are getting so much better. Is Milwaukee really in the right path? That's the big question mark here, which right now it doesn't really look like it. I don't really like what they got going on. I think Giannis and Dame need to do more pick and roll together, and they, for some reason on the court, they just don't do a ton of it. But they need to do something here, and they need to think about shipping some players off that are a little on the older side. But let's move on to Minnesota. So far, they lost out on Kyle Anderson, which, Monte Morris as well. They lost on some bench players, but then they get guys like P.J. Dozier, Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles, solid sniper for them. Going to come off the bench for sure. And then they bring back Luka Garza, which is, whatever. But I'm not so upset with their offseason. I do believe that I don't love the pairing of – I just think that they could get more out of the power forward spot if they went and moved off of Cat. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't really see the Gobert, Cat, Anthony Edwards. I love the fact they went and got Rob Dillingham, but I don't really love the pairing of those three in a championship sense. I think that they for sure could be solid and continue to, but I think that Karl-Anthony Towns is the problem. So hopefully they go and make another move here. I love to root for Anthony Edwards. I think it's hard not to root for the guy, but I hope they go and do something else. All right, let's move on to the New Orleans Pelicans, who obviously brought in DeJounte Murray, lost out on in the trade Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance. They lost Jonas Valanciunas to free agency. That was expected. They're going to need to make another move. I'm assuming they're going to get a center back in a package surrounded by Brandon Ingram. Now, they've talked about trying to make negotiable contract with Brandon Ingram in order to make it friendly for both parties. But I kind of see that as a smokescreen. I see that just kind of keeping his value high by saying, oh, we might just keep him. I think that that's what they're trying to do here. I see Brandon Ingram being on a different roster come the start of the season because you got to let those young guys flourish. You got to let Trey Murphy flourish. You got to let Herb Jones flourish as well. So I don't believe that they're quite done. I think that there's going to be more noise in New Orleans come soon. Now, the Knicks. They might have had one of the best off seasons thus far. Bringing back your guy, OG, who played really well for you, just really tired and exhausted by the Thibodeau system. Bringing in a guy that's perfect for the Thibodeau system, which is Mikal Bridges, joining the Villanova boys. Yes, you lose out on Bogdanovich, Alec Burks. Isaiah Hartenstein is probably a big loss for them. But you have Mitchell Robinson there. There's going to be, obviously, not everyone's going to be able to stay. But you went and you got your guy, pair alongside Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, and you're putting together a solid squad. So there are going to be the Knicks could be competing for that championship spot in the East, coming out of the East, with Boston and with another team that I'll mention here shortly. So great offseason for them. Another great offseason is the Oklahoma City Thunder. You bring back Isaiah Joe, solid player off the bench for you. Aaron Wiggins, solid player for you. You add one of the best defenders in the NBA, Alex Caruso. Then you add Isaiah Hartenstein. Perfect. You needed a bruiser to put alongside Chet, to put alongside these guys and help them, give them some fire. And Isaiah Hartenstein is perfect for them, right? They are putting together something phenomenal to where next year, this upcoming season, they could be looking dangerous. And then they lost out on Josh Giddey. That's literally it. I mean, Lindy Waters is, whatever. But Josh Giddey, that was all you gave up, and you got Alex Caruso. Yeah, you gave up picks. No picks. It was just 1-for-1. So you have this plethora of draft capital that they have. You have Alex Caruso. You have Isaiah Hartenstein. You already got your guys in Shea, Lou Dort, J-Dub. You got the other J-Dub there. And then you have Chet. They're only getting better, and they remind me a lot of the young Boston Celtics in the sense of you had the Jason Tatum, the young star developing, Jaylen Brown, young star developing. They got a couple of those over in Oklahoma City. You just had a lot of young guys that just needed time to grow. And Oklahoma City is doing that. So they are in a very interesting spot. WWW offseason for them so far. All right. Next up, we talk about the Orlando Magic. They bring in KCP, a good veteran. Just see that they have too many guards. They bring back Gary Harris as well. You got, I love to see Goga Badatsi here getting a bigger deal. 3-year, I believe it was $25 million. He was sitting next to Zion on draft night when every reporter was talking to Zion, and no one was talking to Goga Badatsi. And now look at him now getting a 3-year, $25 million deal. I know it's not a lot in the NBA, but still, it's a lot of money. I respect that. I like that a lot for them. But overall, the Magic need to start making decisions. J. Cole, Jalen Suggs, you got KCP now, Gary Harris. There's a lot of guards there that are just piling up. And you're like, what direction are we going in right now? We need to use those young guys, go trade them, get some assets for you that can help you win now. You probably need to get not a better center, but a more Swiss Army knife center. I would love to see them also in that Lauri Markkanen sweepstakes. I would love to see that. They've got the young players to do so that would fit Utah's timeline and draft capital. So another team competing for the best possible offseason is the 76ers here. You bring back your guy, Tyrese Maxey, on a fantastic deal. Of course, you had to pay him. You bring Kelly Oubre back on a good deal for y'all as a group. And then you bring in Paul George, of course. That's obviously the bread and butter. The perfect fit alongside Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid is Paul George. A lot of people have been saying it forever. Now, what I do like about this offseason also is you brought in Andre Drummond, who provided solid minutes for the Bulls and who's going to provide solid backup center minutes for the 76ers and helps them with depth because Boston, New York, Cleveland has depth. All these squads have depth. You need to compete with that. They bring in Eric Gordon here too. I mean, a lot of people have been saying he might start, which I don't really think he's a starter. I think he's kind of more of a 7th, 8th guy coming off your bench. Now, of course, departures, you lost a little bit here. DeAnthony Melton was a bit of that kind of sucked for them. They lost Nicholas Batum, who played solid for them in the playoffs. Lost Buddy Hield as well, and Mo Bamba, but I like the additions that they had here. So, Phoenix. Let's talk about Phoenix. They couldn't really do too much. They, of course, brought some guys back. They brought in Mason Plumlee, who's a solid backup center for them, unless they're going to look to move off of Yusuf Nurkic. I don't really see that, though. Bringing in Monte Morris, too. They kind of just needed – Phoenix just needs guys. They just need players, and their biggest problem is they don't have depth. So bringing a lot of guys to return as well as bringing in 2 solid could be possible role players for you. think it's a solid move for them. Losing out on Eric Gordon, I don't think is anything to write home about. Drew Eubanks as well. I don't really see that as a huge loss for them. All right, next up we have Portland. They bring in Denny Adviha with the trade with the Wizards. I really like that. And then they lost out on Malcolm Brogdon, which was to bring in Denny. I think Denny is a solid player that is kind of a good fit with the Portland Trailblazers timeline. It didn't really work out well with Washington. I don't really think they utilized him really well. I think he'll fit decently well alongside Scoot and DeAndre Ayton and so on. Now, let's talk about the Sacramento Kings, because I discussed, obviously, they brought back Alex Len. They brought back Malik Monk. I actually got the opportunity to meet Alex Len. That was pretty cool, but I'll talk about that on a different episode here. They brought in Jalen McDaniels with the trade. Last out on Davion and Sasha. I know a lot of fans were missing. We're going to miss these two. But overall, I think Sacramento is... I talked about it in that draft video, where Sacramento is just going to continue to just do the same thing over and over and not make the big splash move. That is the problem with Sacramento, is they are afraid. They are scared to make the big splash move. Philly going out and getting their guy, Paul George, big splash move, right? New York trading for Mikal Bridges, big splash move. At least with Phoenix, they went and traded, and they got, obviously they drafted Devin Booker. They went and got KD, and they traded for Bradley Beal. You went and you got, I wish Sacramento would do that. I wish they would just kind of swing for the fences, because that's what they need. They've got two solid guys, Fox and Sabonis. You got Keegan Murray, who's a young and upcoming player. You need to go swing for the fences. So I'm not in love with, obviously bringing back Malik Monk is huge for them. Solid off-the-bench player, $6 million a year kind of guy. But you need to go take your contracts. You got Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes. You have some young assets there that can be used in a trade. They need to do something. So not my favorite offseason right there with Sacramento. San Antonio brings in Chris Paul. I actually really like this signing, just for leadership-wise for Vic. I think that's phenomenal. I think Chris, probably after this year, is probably just going to be retired. This is probably his last hurrah. So, I mean, maybe one more year, but he's pretty close to calling it. And to being able to put his mentorship with somebody like Victor Wembanyama is going to be perfect for Vic. I think that's going to help him a lot. And they've always kind of needed a point guard there. So, good offseason. Not a great one. Obviously, you're not bringing in anyone massive. We kind of expected a lot more out of San Antonio than they have so far. That's why it's a little disappointing. But bringing in Chris Paul, I think, is a solid addition. Toronto. I think they've had a great offseason so far. You lose out on Jalen McDaniels. You get a defensive guy in Davion Mitchell, a good defender, and you get his three-point sniper in Sasha. Whether he's going to play for you is the big question mark. I've seen he's wanted to go back home. So we'll see how that goes with Sasha, but he'll be a solid player if he does play off the bench, two guys. You bring back Emmanuel Quickley, Scotty Barnes, Garrett Temple. You had to re-sign Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel Quickley. I mean, you went and you traded OG for Emmanuel Quickley, so you had to bring him back. Same thing with Scotty Barnes. He is your centerpiece that you're building around. You had to bring him back. Utah. I don't think that they're done. I think Lauri Markkanen is going to be on the market sometime here, depending on the roster and everything. I think watch out for Golden State is what I'm saying, because of the Jonathan Kuminga would be somebody I would want back for Lauri Markkanen. I think he's very interesting. I think he's a solid player. I think he can do a lot. I have a lot of faith in Jonathan Kuminga. I think he will be really good soon in the NBA. So watch out for them. But they bring in Drew Eubanks, which is whatever. They're not done, though. So they're a big question mark. Let's move on to the last team, Washington. I think Washington has had a decent offseason. You got the number one prospect in the draft, Alex Sarr. You then traded for, you got Malcolm Brogdon. And you got that 14th overall pick, which they got Bub Watson, which that dude is from Pitt, that guy is legit. I like that guy a lot. I think he'll be a really good bucket for them. You bring back Rashawn Holmes, which is, whatever. You bring in Jonas Valanciunas. This was the only questionable deal for me because it was like, you got Alex Sarr. This lineup is just kind of weird. I just want to see their complete Wizards roster right now. So you got Koulibaly here. You still have Tyus Jones, but we're pretty much under the understanding he's probably not going to be there. He's got a lot of trade value right now. Jordan Poole, this is where it's weird because you have Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma, obviously Alex Sarr. You just have a lot of question marks here. Let me look up Washington Wizards depth chart. Let's take a look at this real quick before we wrap things up. See, look at this random roster. This is you're making any trade in 2K possible kind of roster because you have Malcolm Brogdon, Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma, Alex Sarr, Jonas Valanciunas with Rashawn Holmes, Koulibaly off the bench, Corey Kispert. It's just strange. It's like this doesn't mesh at all together. You have a stretch big, Kyle Kuzma's. I don't know. I hope Washington's not done. I hope that this is not the rest of them. I hope that they go out and make some more moves because this is kind of an L roster from what I can see. I mean, obviously you got Alex Sarr. That's all you kind of care about right now. So what they should do is just. Gosh, it's so strange. I'm even looking at this roster and I'm like, what's going on here? So, but yeah, overall, I hope that they're not done. Biggest winners of free agency thus far, I think it's pretty obvious. We have Philly is top of that list. You have the Thunder top of that list, and the Knicks. The Knicks are on the top of that list as well. Watch out for New Orleans though. New Orleans could be on the top of that list as well. Biggest losers, we got the Lakers because they just haven't really done much. We do have the Warriors because they lost out on Clay, of course. Now, they didn't want to pay him as much, all that good stuff, but they are losing out. And I would say Milwaukee is also a huge loser that does concern me coming up in this next future. For them. So if you guys did enjoy this video, do me a huge favor, smash that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment down below on the biggest winner for you coming in this off season. So with that being said, it's been another Heart Over Height episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.